And we're going to continue on with our study of what we just chanted, Guidepost of Silent Illumination, and see if we can't take a look at several more lines of this beautiful poem. And I don't recall mentioning over this stretch of time that we've been looking at Hongzhi that he does kind of occupy a special place for me in my practice because for a couple of reasons. One of the sessions at my teacher center temple, Jikoji, the dharma theme was this cultivating the empty field, which is Taigen Dan Layton's compilation of teachings of Hongzhi. So I was one of the teachers who gave a talk in the course of that. But even more importantly, for those of you with rakusus, you know that part of the inscription that goes on the back of the rakusu is a text from some Zen piece. And the one on the back of my transmission rakusu is actually from Hongzhi. And it's a beautiful passage for someone who's just been fully authorized as a teacher. Let me share it with you. The empty valley welcomes the clouds. A cold stream washes the moon, not departing, not remaining, without attainment, without expectations. And beyond all the changes, give the teaching and emerge. So, Hongzhi is near and dear. And just given his influence on Dogen, who's kind of considered the founding teacher for our Soto Zen lineage, he's a major teacher for everyone within this Soto Zen lineage. But where I wanted to pick up, I think where we left off last time was we began to look at this matter of wonder, which appears in like the 8th line and again in the 9th line. I think we began to touch on that the last time we looked at this, which was a few weeks ago. And I thought I'd begin that with something that I found. It's actually just an email from San Francisco Zen Center about an upcoming program that they have or had, because actually this goes back to January 25th. And it's just the title of the program that really caught my attention, because it says, relaxing into the wonderment of Zazen. And that, I thought, nicely captures what we're looking at here. Relaxing into the wonderment of Zazen. And when wonder exists in serenity, all achievement is forgotten in illumination. Wonder exists in serenity. So this is what's being conveyed by the statement, relaxing into the wonderment of Zazen. The serenity. So when we practice Zazen, wonder naturally arises because it's so intimately connected to this state of relaxation. And actually, it's amazing how relaxation connects to so many things, the myriad dharmas that we can only access through relaxation, through zazen. Uh, and this is something that I have come to emphasize a fair amount in the meditation work I do at Whitehaven. In fact, at Kimberly's house, she had a note in the kitchen that with a phrase she had encountered in the teachings, relaxing into vigilance, so that relaxation and these two seem completely contrary. It's like if you're vigilant, you're not relaxed then. And yet, that's actually what Zazen is all about. And that's what I try to emphasize at Whitehaven, because they can feel like, well, if they fell asleep during Zazen, they really have it down. They can totally relax. I said, well, that's good if that's what you need, but actually that's not meditation. Meditation is when you can bring together these two, relaxation and vigilance, or relaxation and the sense of wonder. And we could go through and list all the qualities that come up as a result of zazen. And they are just so intimately connected to this state of complete relaxation. Some of them are kind of synonymous with it, letting go. If we're relaxed, that kind of is letting go. Whereas if we're tense, our body is holding on. Not only mentally are we holding on, but we're definitely not letting go. So from this line about when wonder exists in serenity, all achievement is forgotten in illumination. Because achievement depends upon a sense of self. Achievement requires an achiever, somebody who was able to achieve something. But to simply be present has no room for a sense of achievement. It just doesn't enter into that picture. So all of our senses of achievement would become effectively forgotten. And the next line pursues this matter of wonder a bit further, beginning with the question, what is this wonder? And the response Hongzhi gives is that alertly seeing through confusion is the way of silent illumination and the origin of subtle radiance. Seeing through confusion is this sense of relaxation, of letting go. So this is the practice that Hongzhi is recommending, the way of silent illumination. And from this point, He's going to segue now into what is effectively his predecessors from many centuries ago, Shito, the author of Sandokai, and Dongshan, the author of the five ranks teaching. So this is going to become kind of the, you might say, the Dharma foundation, the relationship between the relative and the absolute. That's going to become at the heart of this seeing through confusion. So that's essentially what we're going to be looking at today, is seeing through confusion in terms of seeing the interrelatedness, always, of the relative and the absolute. So everything we encounter, every experience, contains within it the ultimate teachings, emptiness. Everything is empty, does not have self-existence, only exists in its relationship with everything else, the Huayan teachings. So, alertly seeing through confusion is the way of silent illumination and the origin of subtle radiance. So this subtle radiance I wanted to take a look at for a couple of minutes, especially in our time. I think this may be helpful for us when we come to see how in our society there's so many people, so many institutions that are radiating out in order to claim a piece of our attention. And the ability of people to get our attention is becoming challenged because we're in overload. But thanks to technology, the ability to generate not subtle radiance, but just radiance that's anything but subtle. Now, what may be the greatest prototype for that would be a city like Las Vegas. Very radiant. The whole neon light thing back in the day, that kind of had its origins in that one city. Or just a few weeks ago, the halftime show for the Super Bowl was radiance, just on a whole different scale. So this is radiance as we kind of experience it regularly. And this is what we expect in our entertainment, anything that's going to seek our attention. It has to be well over the top. And since gold is going to come into the mix here shortly, we have a very radiant president these days, of course, who's very fond of the use of gold for its radiance. And the fact that it does send a message about attainment, achievement. But gold, as it's laid out here in Hongzhi's poem, has none of those connotations. So subtle radiance is the kind of radiance that comes from the simple, the everyday. That we can see the sacred in any object we encounter. That is just another way of talking about subtle radiance. It's seeing the sacred everywhere. There's nowhere it does not reach. And so the origin of subtle radiance is this practice of silent illumination. So when we practice Zazen, we will begin to see things in such a fashion. And when that happens, then the radiance that I guess throughout history has been part and parcel of displays of power and wealth, it loses its impact because we're seeing the radiant everywhere. We see the sacred everywhere. So the next line, continuing with this subject of subtle radiance, says vision penetrating into subtle radiance is weaving gold on a jade loom. So vision penetrating into subtle radiance is silent illumination. Illumination's kind of as a metaphor is pointing towards vision. And that's what allows us to penetrate into the subtle radiance of all things. That we're immersed in it constantly. And this subject of weaving gold then on a jade loom is also a metaphor. And it's taken from Sandokai, Shito's beautiful poem that we frequently chant here. So what's being woven, gold onto a jade loom, what we're weaving now, as it's being portrayed by Hongzhi, is light and darkness, which is the theme of Sandokai, about the interplay of light and darkness. So in our practice, we become weavers, so to speak, of the interplay between light and darkness. And as Dong Shan will outline it in his teachings of the 5 ranks, which is just his portrayal of 5 different ways that the relative and the absolute interact with one another, get woven together. So they're just different weaves on this loom. Weaving gold on a jade loom. So as a result of this weaving, we end up with a coherent whole reality. But it's a reality that now includes the sacred because of this subtle radiance in the ordinary everyday. So it's a powerful metaphor here that I can recall always struck me from the first time I chanted this. This image of weaving gold on a jade loom. And to see it as light and dark. So the next line talks, kind of references Taoism, texts like the I Ching especially. Upright and inclined yield to each other. Light and dark are interdependent. So within the I Ching, you know, the upright and inclined is a kind of at the core of it. And the upright represents stability and balance, while inclined is changing. So the I Ching is like the book of changes. So that's how kind of woven through the text of the I Ching, you have this interaction between upright and inclined, also referred to sometimes as yin and yang. And the changing between them. So to see reality is this process of constant changing. And there's the stability that we bring with our practice, which is why we don't get swept away by the changes. It's not that we don't feel them, but we have this stability that isn't something external we're holding on to. That wouldn't, in effect, be very stable. Rather, it's the stability that's actually to be found, the radiance that's to be found in the changes, in everything. And what we do is we see our nature as being of that nature. And when that happens, we can experience stability within transition. That interdependence is still there. That impermanence has always been present. This isn't a new thing. There is always impermanence. So a spiritual path provides a deeper sense of stability throughout the changes. That's where, we've had occasion lately to look at the metaphor of water and the ocean. That's why at deeper levels of any body of water, there's more stability. Or in an aircraft, it's the reverse. At higher levels, there's more stability. You get above the turbulence. So we could find metaphors in air, in water. But the stability is there. And through our practice, through silent illumination, we understand that. So we can, and we recognize, part of that understanding is we're recognizing that we embody it. We manifest it as well. So we're not something that's separate from this nature of reality. It's all around us, and it is us. So upright and inclined yield to each other. Light and dark are interdependent. Echoing the metaphorical use of weaving gold on a jade loom that I read in the previous line. Weaving gold on a jade loom is seeing the light, that light and dark are interdependent. As Sandokai puts it, right in the light, there is darkness. And right in the darkness, there is light. They are interdependent. So the next line says, not depending on sense, faculty, and object, at the right time they interact. So that was interesting to me, echoing something we just looked at on Thursday in terms of the sense of purity. And its use, as I talked about on Thursday, its use, the term pure, by one of the most important philosophers in the Western world, Immanuel Kant, in his critique of pure reason. And for him, purity means completely independent of all sense experience. So not depending on sense, faculty, and object. This is relating many centuries after Hongzhi to Kant's sense of purity, which we occasionally encounter with Zen. And I think, Kant's use of it plays well within Zen's use of purity when it does come up. Not depending upon sense faculty and object. Sense faculty and object are interacting within the relative, but the ultimate is not dependent on sense faculty and object. So this interdependence of light and dark, of the relative and absolute, not depending on sense faculty, and at the right time, they interact. At the right time. That's an interesting way of describing it. Which, of course, we could kind of take issue with the use of the term right, because it's always problematic. But it's to my mind, what's being pointed to here, by the right time, it's that causes and conditions have come together to create this. So we could see suchness, the arising that's always taking place moment after moment after moment, as, this is the right time for this. And that's where use of the term right becomes interesting, I think, because the objection to that is always going to be, but what's coming up right now isn't right from this moral, ethical sense. It seems to imply that, it has to be right because that's what's happening. That's why I see this as it's right, because the causes and conditions have come together to create this. So every day, the news that we read, we can understand its rightness in that non-judgmental, non-morally influenced sense that things have come together. And part of what they create is ethical, I'll even call them obligations on our part. If we take our ethical vows to heart and embody them. So that also becomes, that's right, that they do come into play. At the right time, they interact. And then these next two lines, which were pretty much where I was hoping to get through these two lines as well. And then I think that'll be enough of this text for one Saturday morning. These next two lines are bringing in the subject of skillful means. So, drinking the medicine of good views beat the poison smeared drum. Good views, we're back into, we could call it, in accordance with the Eightfold Path, right views, or good views, kind of points to prajna. And that's an aspect of silent illumination. So if we see these good views as prajna, it's kind of pointing, you could say, at the importance of practice, which is how we practice prajna, uncover the prajna that's within each and every one of us. And in fact, the drinking the medicine is to practice. So drink the medicine of good views means to practice. And through your practice, you will realize good views. You will unlock the prajna that's within you. So what about this beating the poison smeared drum? And this is an image that comes from one of the most important sutras in the Mahayana tradition, but it's a very long sutra and isn't generally available in English translation. It's called the Nirvana Sutra. And it involves using what we could call poisonous experiences, very challenging experiences, that we can use those to let go of deluded thoughts. So beating the poison smeared drum is to actually put to use, in terms of practice, the challenges that we encounter. And maybe more common, more commonly, we receive that teaching when Buddhists point out that sometimes our enemies, those that oppose us, can be our greatest teachers. I think that's an example of beating the poison smeared drum. Someone who opposes our good views. So I'm taking these views more broadly than just policy positions, but that to see them as being something that can really be helpful to us. It's been described as using the dharma to overcome delusion. Drinking the medicine of good views and its interdependence with beating the poison smeared drum. Using the dharma to overcome our challenges, our delusions. So drinking the medicine of good views, beating the poison smeared drum. And that brings us to the final line I wanted to look at this morning. When they interact, killing and giving life are up to you. So this sounds pretty serious. And it always struck me that way, the sense of killing and giving life. And of course, killing, for me, always echoes the teachings on emptiness, which are based on negations, negating everything, and denying existence in a certain respect, absolute existence. That things don't exist in a substantial way. We only exist as part of our interdependence. So that can be seen as killing life. Almost like the entire corpus of the emptiness teachings. It's kind of like excising a view that doesn't serve us well, which is the sense of self and other. So one of the results of following those teachings is that is the entry point into non-duality, because our dualities are all founded upon the sense of self and other. That's that basic separation. So killing and giving life, the killing part is to induce falling away of a sense of a separate self. And an example of that I remember seeing in a video quite a while back involved this Korean woman who, if memory serves, I think she had been a Christian, and she was interested in Zen, and she did a retreat, met with the teacher, and had a dokusan, and proceeded to relate to him all these many problems she had in her life. And, So was he going to kill or give life? And that becomes a question for teachers. So he opted to go the route of killing and basically just taking away her sense of separate self by the technique of just saying, well, everybody has problems. I have a long list of problems myself, and everybody else does too. Not what she was expecting. And yet, it was such a powerful message. It took a little while before it really settled in. But, it was a huge liberating moment for her to hear that at that time. So the giving life, because Buddhism is not all just, stripping everything away. There are aspects of Buddhism, like Huayan teachings or Yogacara teachings, that actually are filling that void that's created by the teachings on emptiness. It's not saying that those aren't true. They're absolutely the truth. But actually, because they're true, that's why things are so rich. It just you misunderstand. If things weren't empty, then things would be really dull. Everything would just exist as it is, and it would be terrible. But it's because of emptiness that we have all the richness. So we can give life, we can kill. And these are both aspects of the teaching of silent illumination. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share from this. And I'll bow out and open it up. Joe?
Yeah, I just had two thoughts I'd like to share and get your opinion on. First, it was at the right time they interact. I was thinking right away that if this were a Monday night, Tobin would be referring to that as being time.
Yeah, right.
And my second comment was just beating the poisonous drum. It seemed to me synonymous with entering a dharma gate.
Yeah, it is. It is. Except we don't really start beating that drum until we see it as a dharma gate. Otherwise, it's the sort of thing that just causes us all the dukkha. But then when we see, that's what I like about that. From a musical standpoint, we can play with it. Beat the drum. What kind of interesting rhythms can I get from this? Even though it's smeared with poison, it's still a drum, right? Can't be all bad. Aaron.
The line about drinking the medicine of good views, directly before that one, it brought up the idea of like the storage consciousness to me.
Yeah.
I've been reading Ben Connolly's book on Yogacara.
Oh, good.
And I still don't fully understand how to articulate that because I feel like it's a really complicated concept, but that was kind of what it reminded me of. Yeah. Because
what we drink in, they're like seeds, and they remain planted, and they just kind of, if they're nurtured, that's we can look at this in terms of Dogen's teachings about continual practice. It's the constant nurturing. We've planted seeds, so we can practice, do retreats, and so on and so forth. But if we don't continue to nurture, then it within a short period of time, it just kind of goes, it loses its coherence, so to speak. So yeah, I think drinking the medicine of good views is very much, relates to that.
Hey, Dean.
Yeah, Mark.
So how do we sort of reconcile with so these concepts of this having a spiritual path providing a deeper sense of stability, and drinking the medicine of good views provide opening up prajna,
Yep.
with our how do you reconcile that with our zazen is no goals,
Right.
no objective, blah, I can't speak, objectiveless, objectlessness.
Yeah.
That's a word, but anyhow, yeah, I think that was my question.
Okay.
So,
But
I mean, I guess I guess I just want to add, is it just sort of, okay, our goal isn't necessarily, oh, I'm doing this because I want to be more stable or have more wisdom. It's
Right.
it just sort of blossoms on its own. It's just sort of an outgrowth of our practice. And it's not so much that we're like attaching to those outcomes.
yeah, and maybe an even better way of seeing this is that we have the sense of once we've attained something, then it's like ours. That's our achievement, our attainment, and
Mhm.
that's not consistent with the Buddhist view of reality, because of the constant ongoing change. So there's nothing that you attain that's it. You've attained it, because it's the constant practice, the constant nurturing, the constant meeting each thing that arises. So we simply dedicate ourselves to living a life like that. And when we finish the Ben Connolly book and we start working with living by vow, hopefully we'll come to see how these bodhisattva vows that we take on with the practice, how they lead to that finding a path that doesn't involve achievement or attainment. But yet we do live by vow, because those 2 points seem to be kind of opposed to one another. Well, if you can't achieve anything, can't attain it, why would you make the vow? Beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Well, you can't, that's not something you can ever attain. So why the heck do you make such a vow? And that's what we'll be looking at. So I think we can lead a very spiritual existence without the need for attainment, achievement. That actually becomes a detriment.
Well, and it can lead you into, like, the past few months, I've been going through a lot of challenges with death in my family. And I have been practicing, but at the same time, I haven't necessarily felt as stable as I have in the past with, even though I'm like practicing. So it can kind of like lead you to think, oh, my practice isn't good enough, or,
Right. Yeah, and that's a natural view to take because we expect an outcome from it. And the practice is simply to be awakened, which just by your comment, that's an awakened comment, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, without the practice, you wouldn't even be looking at it now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and chant out then. May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it. All right. Well, hope everybody enjoys the rest of the weekend, and we'll be back on Thursday.
Mr. John, but I'm really kind of enjoying